Good morning.
It is.
Last-
Again.
Good morning again.
It is a good morning again. And again, 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 and again. This is going to take a while. Again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Again,
Last
and
time
again,
I was
and again.
on the
Again,
hot
and
seat,
again, and again, and again, and again.
I was lower, and I feel like I've been upgraded. So, business class.
Well, it's just so that if you get out of hand, we can take the microphone away from you, so don't get too happy about it.
I'm happy. I want to talk about momentum, but also about specific and general. I try to make it one subject. So I wake up in the morning, whatever time I wake up, and I go to meditate, and I realize how important it is for me to meditate before I do anything else.
Because it starts the day in a resistant-free vibration that will increase in momentum. It's the literal getting out of bed on the right foot. Yeah.
And it works, really. And it takes me the time that it takes for me to get into a resistant-less state.
Yeah.
And
Good
once
word.
I do, I start playing a little bit more specific,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And the thing that I probably want some clarity about is the joy of rampaging and appreciating. And generally, I would do that at the end, but
Well, that's the natural outcome.
I rarely feel the inclination to do so, even after a while.
All right. Well,
And-
that is the natural outcome of momentum that is allowed to persist. In other words, if you get into a place of, Esther has been writing because she knows the feeling of well-being, of contentment. And she knows the feeling of well-being, just that feeling of soft appreciation about something. She also knows the feeling of clarity. Now, clarity to Esther feels like it has way more momentum in it than just ease, even though they are both high-flying disc emotions. But there's more momentum in clarity. So it's just a matter of playing with it. And the thing that has been a little hindering for a lot of people is that they've been deviating vibrationally. And here's what we mean by this. So if you're looking at something that makes you feel good, and you hold yourself in that general place of feeling good, and you don't introduce other subjects that are laden with resistance, that good feeling will increase until you will feel like rampaging. But the thing that's a little interesting is that there are subjects and there are vibrations. So for example, let's say that you're thinking, you've meditated and you've got yourself into a really good feeling place. And you've been general, and so the feeling of well-being has persisted. And now, like our friend earlier, the feeling of well-being is lovely, but she'd like a little more juice flowing through it all. More enthusiasm, more evidence of the vibration. And so you begin to get more specific in your thought. And so you're not just thinking in really general terms. Now you're thinking about the garden. We're giving an example of something that happened to Esther recently. Now you're thinking about the garden. Well, when you're thinking about the garden in general, still, you're not introducing any resistance to it until you remember the gardener who didn't come. Now, the subject of the garden seemed innocent enough, but the subject of the missing gardener is a whole different vibrational frequency. And when that uneasiness starts to waft over you, that's the time that you want to deliberately, before there's much momentum, either change the subject from garden to something else that has less potential,
more
or
general.
focus on a more general aspect of the garden. So it's just a matter of, and once you get deliberate, and you are, we can feel it, and our friend before as well, once you become deliberate about noticing what's coming in response to your thought and then adjusting your thought to notice what's coming. But the double-edged sword that our friend was talking about is you don't want to get too heavy on noticing what's coming, because then your notice of what coming is dominating your vibration. This is such a simple concept, but a delicate balance. And you just get better and better and better at it, you see. A lot of you watch the wire walker and you think, good for him, I never want to do that. And we say, yet you're doing that with your vibrational. It's delicate. It's delicate. It takes practice, and you'll get better at it. And if you're lazy, you'll never get better at it. If you let what comes control your vibration instead of controlling your vibration, which brings what comes, feel the difference? You can observe, and what you observe will cause your vibrational environment. What you observe does affect your point of attraction, but it doesn't have to. And so Esther's been saying to herself, am I going to create my vibrational environment, or am I going to react to things that are happening? Because when you react to what's happening, that creates an environment that brings more of that, you see. Yeah.
The issues that are big, important for me, do I leave them aside and stay general and
depends on how they feel. If they're, usually when you use the word issue, they're sort of laden with things that are a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. So do I get into a good feeling state and then play with it?
Listen to it this way. You just heard us say, your singular work is to create an environment that lets in good stuff. So if you start with an issue that doesn't feel good, and that's the reason that you've created the vibrational atmosphere, then that vibrational atmosphere is just going to support the things that don't feel good, and that's momentum. You're getting this, aren't you? So what do, Abraham? Put my head in the sand? If it's helpful.
I generally know when to start playing more deliberate and more specific. So I feel that I'm in a state of non-resistance.
It really only takes about 30 days of waking up in the morning and saying, it's a new day again.
Yeah.
It's a new day, and in this new day, all momentum, while I slept, all momentum subsided. And now I've got a fresh start here. I've pushed the reset button, and I get to establish my vibrational environment. And the first day, you won't be very good at it. Probably the second or the third or the fourth. But once you get a week or two or three into this, where you're deliberately reaching for things that feel good, and you're allowing that momentum to get going, and then you're noticing the results of that small effort, before you know it, you begin to feel eager to work on your environment rather than so ready to jump into the day. Esther had a dream because she's really been chewing on this. And we think dreams are wonderful because dreams show you what you've got going on in your vibration. So she'd been thinking a lot about this. And she'd been saying to her daughter, Tracy, they talk about this incessantly. And she'd been saying to Tracy that she really wants to just create this vibrational environment and then notice the results of it, and then not get too carried away about talking about the results of it. Because when you get results that you don't want, and then you talk about those results as if you're looking for a solution, you're not looking for a solution, you're not finding a solution, you are creating more atmosphere that's going to bring more of that until you've created enough of it that you're finally done with it. And so Esther had been thinking about that, and she began saying to herself, in a very pronounced way, I am the creator of my environment, and everything else will come from that. So she's really been on that. And it is as important, that double-edged sword that you were talking about earlier, it is as important to acknowledge the benefit of noticing what comes in as it is of deliberately creating an environment which causes whatever you want to come in. Because how are you going to know how you're doing if you're not aware of what's coming in? And that's the important thing. So often, things come to you that you don't want, or to some degree or another, and then you want to justify it or debate it or talk about it or explain it. And every word you speak about the events that were not pleasing in any way cause you to create an atmosphere that is asking for more of those. Don't you find that interesting? All that debating, all that explaining. That's why your little kids, when you say, why did you do that? They just want to run away. They naturally know this isn't going well. Don't make me talk about it anymore. So in Esther's dream, she was at a gathering like this, but it was a very large gathering, and it was an outside event. And when Esther got on the platform and looked out at the audience, she realized that the audience was looking directly into the sun. It was outside, the sun was setting. She knew how uncomfortable it must be for everyone. So she said to everyone that's involved, all of these nice people who fly in from everywhere and set up everything to make all of this possible for all of us, she said to them, what do you think about us just turning this whole thing around? And I'll go up there because I don't mind looking into the sun, and they'll feel better. And before they could answer, the audience protested, because that meant the front row was going to be the back row. And so a sort of frenzy happened, and people started taking their chairs and running. It was awful. It was chaos. There were wires pulled up from everywhere. The cameras weren't in the right place. The microphone wouldn't reach. Esther had not thought it through. In her dream, she had reacted to a condition that did not please her, and her reaction made it hundreds of times worse. In her dream, hours were going by, and we were still not settled into an environment that would be conducive for a gathering like this. And when she woke up, she knew exactly what the dream was telling her. It was saying, don't have an experience and react to the experience. Your reaction to the experience is only going to compound the experience. It's only going to make it more. Live it out. Fall from the sky. Do whatever you got to do. Let it peter out. And in a time of quiet reflection, first thing in the morning, begin again. And if you understand that, so that you just begin again and you begin again, if you could resist the urge to reprimand somebody who's doing something wrong, because they're never going to hear it. In other words, they're not going to hear it. They might modify their behavior so they don't do it so often in front of you, but it doesn't change their experience, you see. If you could resist the urge, and it's hard because momentum is carrying it, to respond to conditions and get fixated on beginning the vibrational nucleus, you are going to be those happy humans who are observing universal response to your deliberate creating of your environment. There are not words powerful enough to explain the power that you hold in your focus. And as you begin, and the only way in other words, these are just so many words for you. We can feel that you're feeling resonance with this. We can feel that you've been listening to us long enough. We know that you know about law of attraction, and we know that you create your own reality. We've just explained to you that you use the power of your soft and easy. Jesus said, the meek shall inherit the earth. And that's not the resistant, not the ornery, not the biggest, not the boldest, not the loudest, not the strongest. Those who are allowing themselves vibrational sync with this unconditional love and unconditional abundance and unconditional clarity that is flowing to you all day, every day.